Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a really unsettling maritime mystery. It's drawn from source material. One of our listeners shared some excerpts from a classic book called The After House.
And this isn't just, a story about a boat trip. It's this chilling journey on a schooner yacht, the Ella.
Right.
And it quickly turns into this locked room puzzle out at sea, full of secrets, suspicion, and then sudden, really brutal violence.
Our mission with this deep dive is to sort of navigate through all the dark turns in this story.
Yeah, we want to understand the people involved trapped together on this yacht. Try to piece together what actually happened on that one horrifying night.
And crucially, see what insights this old story might offer about, well, fear, how we see things, and how truth can be really elusive, especially when you're confined like that.
It's a fascinating, pretty unsettling look at how people behave under extreme pressure.
Okay, let's unpack what our sources tell us.
Okay, so the story starts with our narrator, Leslie. He's just graduated medical school. But things aren't looking great for him. He's recovering from typhoid fever, so he's weak, and he barely has any stuff. Just like an old medical library, some surgical tools.
And his graduation suit.
And his suit, yeah. So he really needs time to recover, but he also desperately needs to earn some money.
Which is where his friend McWhorter comes in, another doctor.
Right, and McWhorter's apparently getting by selling pharmacy goodies, as the source puts it.
Okay.
And he'd managed to impress the yacht owner's wife somehow, stocking up their medical supplies, gave her his special seasick remedy.
The connection?
Exactly. So this connection lands Leslie a really peculiar job on this yacht, the Ella.
The Ella. Belongs to a rich guy, Marshall Turner.
Yeah. And the sources say, for a rich guy's yacht, maybe it wasn't super fancy overall.
But it had some major refits just before this trip, especially the after house.
That's the owner and guest area, yeah. They put in electric lights, refrigeration, modern stuff.
And weirdly, a bath in the forecastle. The crew's quarters.
Yeah. Apparently the old sailors were completely baffled by that. A bath up in the bow.
Strange touch. Okay, so the ship itself is a schooner.
Schooner rigged, yeah. 2 or more masts. Sails set along the line of the keel.
Efficient design. It had lifeboats, a captain, 2 mates.
6 experienced sailors and 1 completely green kid, a novice.
And the destination was kind of vague. Panama, South America, so somewhere down there.
Depends on the weather and Turner's mood, apparently.
So Leslie gets hired, but not as the ship's doctor, which you'd expect.
No, he's hired as an extra man. His main job is just working with the crew.
But with this possibility.
Right, that he might have to step in as butler if the current one, Williams, couldn't handle the sea.
So he shows up looking, well, exactly like someone who's been seriously ill. Thin, pale.
Old clothes. And McWhorter told him not to shave. Kind of lean into the rough look, maybe?
Maybe. He meets the captain first. Then he sees Miss Lee for the first time, Turner's sister-in-law.
Described as beautiful, but also kind of distant. Haughty, the source says.
And she just looks him up and down and basically says his appearance might suit being a butler.
Ouch. Leslie notes that with some quiet bitterness, thinking about his MD.
Yeah, tough start. Initially, though, life for the crew seems okay.
Relatively smooth, yeah. Good weather, decent food. They do have to sleep on deck for a couple of nights first.
Why was that?
Fumigation smells in the forecastle. Formaldehyde, maybe? Still lingering.
Right. But Leslie, the narrator, he senses something's wrong. Trouble brewing in the after house with the guests.
Definitely. And it's clearly centered around Marshall Turner, the owner.
He's drinking. A lot.
Maybe even more than usual, being away from his routine. And the butler, Williams, seems to be helping him along with that.
Not great.
Right.
The sources actually suggest the whole cruise was the family's idea.
Trying to get him away from his habits, yeah. Clearly not working.
And the crew knows. It's common knowledge.
Oh, yeah. They talk about it in the forecastle. Turner's drinking.
Leslie sees this really tense moment. Turner, another guest named Vale, and Mrs. Turner.
And Turner says something really nasty, right? About Vale and Leslie.
Yeah, like another of your friends.
Yeah.
Hints strongly at jealousy. Maybe about Mrs. Turner.
And Mrs. Johns, another guest, quickly tries to smooth it over, awkwardly.
Later, Mrs. Johns actually talks to Leslie privately, confides in him.
Says she's genuinely scared of Turner. Confirms he's eaten up with jealousy about Vale and his wife.
And she reveals a secret, right? About the butler.
Yes. Says Turner actually hit Williams, knocked him down in an argument.
Whoa.
But they're covering it up, saying Williams is just seasick.
So he's not just drinking, he's violent.
And she's terrified Vale is next. And she thinks Vale
Well, she thinks Vale would kill Turner if Turner attacked him.
Heavy stuff.
Hmm.
And amid all this, Miss Lee talks to Leslie again.
Asks him about his plans. She seems surprised he's potentially becoming the butler now.
And despite the rain, his sort of servant role, the source makes it clear Leslie is quite taken with her.
Adds another layer of complication for him personally.
And then everything just explodes. The simmering tension. Yeah. Early morning, August 12th. Between about 2:30 and 3:01 a.m.,
3 people are murdered.
Captain Richardson, Mr. Vale, and Karen, the Danish maid, she shared a cabin with the stewardess.
And Leslie, the narrator. Where is he?
He happens to be sleeping in the storeroom. In the afterhouse.
Right there.
Mrs. Johns had asked him to. She was that scared about Turner confronting the captain.
Smart move by her, asking him. Did he have protection?
Yeah, he slept with his revolver handy and kept the storeroom door open a crack.
Okay. The stewardess, Mrs. Sloane. Her account is key, but confusing at first.
Right. She says she woke up around 4 a.m., heard the ship's bell for the watch change.
8 bells.
And she notices Karen isn't in their cabin. Their window is near the ship's wheel, usually has a curtain.
Okay.
So she looks out their cabin door, which opens into the chart room, for navigation, and sees Turner and another officer, Singleton, in there, drinking.
Then Karen comes back.
Yeah, Karen returns to the cabin, really agitated, says she saw someone on the companion stairs down from the deck, thought it was Turner.
Okay, unsettling. But then it gets worse.
Much worse. Later, the stewardess wakes up again. Karen is whispering to her.
Saying what?
Saying there's a white figure looking in their window, waving.
Oh, man.
And right after that, an axe falls into the cabin, lands right next to the stewardess on her bunk.
Terrifying.
She tries to scream, faints, but just before she passes out completely, she sees their cabin door. Remember, it opens out into the chart room closing, slowly. Silently.
And she had a bruise later.
Yeah, shows Leslie a bad bruise on her arm, probably from the axe falling so close.
So the alarm gets raised. Leslie finds the bodies.
Captain Richardson in the main cabin,
Yeah.
Mr. Vale in his own cabin, just a nightmare.
And the captain's dead. Suddenly there's no command structure.
And Leslie, the outsider, the temporary crewman, gets pushed into leadership.
Does he want it?
Not at all. He protests, tells the crew, I know nothing about ships. I can't navigate. I'm not competent.
But they insist.
Yeah, key guys like Charlie Jones and Burns, with others backing them up, they basically say, look, we need someone with a head on their shoulders.
And because he wasn't really one of them.
Exactly. Because he hasn't been one of us, as they put it. Choosing him doesn't step on any toes in the crew hierarchy. Pure crisis management.
It's pragmatic, but wow. And they stick by him.
Totally. Later, when Leslie himself is under a cloud of suspicion, he actually offers to surrender himself to Burns. Acknowledges he was near the murders.
But the crew says no.
Flat out refuse. They trust him. It's pretty remarkable loyalty under the circumstances.
So Leslie, now reluctantly in charge, takes steps, secures the ship.
Right. Locks the forecastle, gives Burns the key, has Olison the carpenter nail the hold hatches shut.
Everyone sleeps on deck from then on. Too dangerous below.
Yeah, safer out in the open, they figure.
What about the women? Mrs. Turner, Miss Lee, Mrs. Johns?
Initially, they're kept below. Leslie tells Miss Lee she can't come on deck that first morning for her own safety.
Even though she wanted to see the bodies. For testimony later.
Yeah, but he puts his foot down. Later, he does rope off a section of the deck just for them, a safe zone.
Then there's the grim task of burial.
They prepare the bodies. Hold a service on deck. Leslie leads it.
Him, the medical student.
Yeah. Reads from Miss Lee's prayer book. He's just doing what needs to be done.
And the logbook.
Crucial decision by the crew. They decide everything needs to be documented meticulously.
And they task Leslie with writing it all down.
Yeah, the log details the murders, the discovery, him taking command, even the crew refusing his offer to surrender. It's their official record.
So some order is restored. But the fear, it doesn't go away.
No way. It deepens. They know the killer is still there, on the ship, among them.
And the women react how?
They are terrified. They create their own defensive line, call it a deadline at the bottom of the stairs into their quarters with a revolver. They tell Leslie they're excellent shots and will defend themselves. Mrs. Johns delivers the message. The narrator says, insolently, shows how things are breaking down.
Suspicion falls on Singleton, one of the mates.
Yeah, he ends up locked up in the forward house. There's later testimony from Olison, the lookout, that puts Singleton near where the axes were kept, around midnight, looking sick. So maybe something there, but it's unclear.
And then things start disappearing. Evidence. Weapons.
Yeah, a marlin spike, it's a pointed tool for rope work, is found. Seems like it hit something, maybe used as a weapon.
And then it vanishes.
Gone. Leslie and Burns search everywhere with a lantern, can't find it. Burns is convinced it means more murder.
Even the cook is armed.
Found with a big meat knife. Says it's just for protection. Everyone's on edge.
And the white figure stories keep circulating.
Oh, yeah. Leslie visits Singleton in confinement, finds him totally distraught.
Raving about what he saw.
Raving about this white faceless thing outside the chart room window. Saw it multiple times.
What did it look like, according to Singleton?
White or light-colored, seemed to shine or gleam, stood tall like a post. And it somehow looked in or reached through the bars, waving a fingerless hand.
Chilling description. Really fuels the ghost idea.
Absolutely. And then the axe itself disappears. The murder weapon.
The one they'd locked in the captain's cabin, with Burns wearing the key.
That exact one. Gone. And it happens right after Burns himself is attacked.
Right. He's found unconscious. Near dawn on August 22nd.
Near the afterhouse. Bleeding from a head wound. Someone knocked him out.
Charlie Jones finds him.
And Jones immediately defends Leslie, insists the attack must have happened while Leslie was asleep.
Try to keep suspicion off the acting captain.
Exactly. Shields him from crew members who might be thinking, where was Leslie when Burns got hit?
Losing that axe must have been a huge blow.
Devastating. Leslie had told them it could potentially identify the killer, like a photograph, under analysis.
So its disappearance feels like the killer covering tracks.
Precisely. Renews all the fear, the muttering about the white figure, and the men start complaining they don't have enough weapons to fight back against whatever this is.
The tension must have been just unbearable on the way back.
Absolutely. The Ella finally makes it back to Philadelphia, less than 4 weeks after leaving, but it must have felt like an eternity.
A journey marked by fear, lack of sleep.
Total nightmare. And the atmosphere among the guests, the owners in the afterhouse, completely changed.
No more card games, no drinks.
Just silence. Strain. The source says when they occasionally came on deck, they were like a different group of people altogether. Changed.
Leslie meets McWhorter at the dock. His friend is there.
Yeah, McWhorter helps him out. Leslie was half expecting to be arrested right there on the spot.
Understandable. The whole thing goes to court. Naturally. U.S. court.
And testimony starts coming out, trying to piece it together legally.
Leslie testifies about finding the bodies, taking charge.
Mrs. Sloan, the stewardess, gives her account of the white figure.
And this is where she says it looked like a fountain.
Yeah. Almost surreal. Says it looked most like a fountain to her. The source notes the jury actually laughs. Shows how subjective and weird trauma-induced memory can be.
Olison, the lookout, confirmed seeing Singleton near the axe storage, looking sick around midnight.
But then Charlie Jones's testimony adds a really critical piece, though maybe misleading at the time.
What does Jones say?
He saw Singleton go into the chart room around 2 a.m., agitated, drinking. But crucially, he also saw Mr. Turner in the chart room.
Turner? What was he doing?
Seemed to be looking for something. Light was on. And Jones notes Turner was wearing a white shirt and vest.
The white figure link. Plausible deniability, maybe, or just circumstance?
Exactly. It points a finger, but maybe the wrong one. Burns also testifies.
Confirms Leslie locked the axe up.
Confirms the arrangement, the key around his neck, and that the key was taken when he was attacked. Proves the attacker wanted that axe.
The defense tries to argue the ship's layout could have muffled sounds.
Yeah. Suggests maybe Leslie wouldn't have heard anything even sleeping nearby because of heavy partitions, trying to create doubt. But the truth is still murky.
Until after the trial. Things shift.
Dramatically. Elsa Lee comes to see Leslie. She's really distressed.
She has something.
An anonymous note she received contains this bizarre drawing, a book, an axe, a gallows, the letters B-A-G and ha.
Weird. What does she think it means?
She's convinced Marshall Turner is in serious trouble, maybe mentally breaking, and she trusts Leslie because of how he handled things on the ship.
So she wants his help. Protecting Turner.
Yeah. And Leslie, despite being broke himself, they have to take a streetcar, not a cab, agrees. He's still thinking he needs to protect Turner, maybe from himself.
So Leslie and McWhorter decide, go back to the ship.
Secretly, at night, the Ella is anchored out in the Delaware River.
They find signs someone might be aboard. A rope ladder, a boat.
Right, suggesting a watchman. But no one answers their signals. They go aboard anyway.
And on deck, in the dark, Leslie finds something.
Horrific. A circular piece of white cloth, smeared with blood.
With symbols on it.
Black symbols.
Big.
Painted on. A 6-pointed star, a crescent moon, a crude animal-shaped dog or lamb, and a cross.
What is that? And then
they're attacked. Out of the darkness, this
Yeah.
kicking, biting, screaming thing, the source calls it.
a wild struggle on deck.
They finally manage to overpower the attacker, get him pinned down,
And they light a match.
and the reveal is just shocking. Almost unbelievable.
It's Charlie Jones.
Charlie Jones, the loyal crewman, the one who helped put Leslie in charge, defended him.
So the source explains. What was he?
A homicidal maniac, driven by this curious nature, it says. He believed he was some kind of priest of heaven.
Making sacrifices.
Ghastly sacrifices. Leslie theorizes maybe triggered by things like shooting stars, celestial signals, hence the tar on the robe.
The white cloth was his robe.
His sacrificial robe, yeah.
Yeah.
Painted with those weird symbols. His delusion had its own twisted logic.
So the murders. Jones saw himself as cleaning house.
Removing the wicked and the oppressor. That might explain targeting the Captain and Vale authority figures, maybe perceived threats in his mind.
Karen, the maid.
Her death doesn't fit the oppressor motive quite as neatly, but it happened during his spree attributed to him. He was just lethally insane during these episodes, normally mild-mannered, apparently.
And this explains all the misdirection. The fear focused on Turner.
Completely. The women, Singleton, even Turner himself, they all thought Turner did it. It made sense. He was raving about a white figure.
And he was found with blood on him.
Exactly. His hands, his clothes, it seemed undeniable. So everyone, including Turner in his confused state, assumed the worst about him.
And the women trying to hide evidence. The axe, the key.
Mrs. Johns getting rid of the axe, Elsa Lee the storeroom key. Those weren't incriminating actions by accomplices. They were desperate attempts to protect Turner because they were convinced he was guilty and trying to save him.
Turner himself barely remembered anything.
Just vague images of something white, ghostly. He denied even knowing Vale was dead or how the blood got on him until much later. The real monster wasn't the obvious suspect, it was the quiet one.
Wow, so this deep dive into the After House material really lays out a classic maritime mystery. Contained. Intense.
Takes a normal voyage and just flips it into this nightmare scenario where fear and suspicion become weapons themselves.
Usal being trapped like that just cranks up the paranoia. Twists how people see things.
Yeah, and how unreliable witnesses can be under that kind of stress. Remember Stewart is seeing a fountain? It shows how personal and strange perception gets.
And it's just a chilling reminder that sometimes the deepest dangers, the real monsters, can be hidden inside someone you think you know, someone you trust.
Definitely. Beyond the mystery itself, the human parts are so strong. That unexpected loyalty of the crew.
Leslie stepping up even though he didn't want to.
And the women's misguided attempts to protect the person they thought was the killer. It's all very human drama, just amplified by the sea and the murders.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? I mean, in our own lives, with information flying everywhere, how often do we jump to conclusions, misinterpret what we see or hear?
And how much do our own fears, our own assumptions, our own loyalties actually shape the story we tell ourselves about what's true? Something to maybe reflect on the next time you're faced with a really puzzling situation.